So this looks like this is Petén. This is
What
probably
Thief has up here?
yeah, this is probably Guatemala. So you would go through a city and you'd see a lot of architecture that's very, very similar to this, and then you'll see one building that's in the style of Talud-Tablero, and it's very noticeable, like the facades of the front. So and it was much larger than this too. It also went further out to the west to those further coastlines. So this is like the smallest version of the Aztec Empire map I've
How
ever
did
seen.
they like police this? Did they have like their own Roman Praetorian guard or something? Like what was the deal?
My guess, we have some data on this, and I'm not yet an expert on the Aztecs. Like the way I grew up doing this, for the last 6-7 years, is I started with the early Maya, and I went back to the Olmecs, and then I went forward in time. So now I'm becoming an expert more so in right before the colonial period and then the colonial period. So this is kind of what I'm studying right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
But sorry, what'd you ask me?
Yeah, I was asking you about how they policed
Yeah.
this area.
So,
like, did they have a military or? Okay.
Oh yeah.
I imagine they didn't. It probably sounded cooler than that. Like,
no, well, they definitely had a military. They had, they did planned, coordinated strikes and conquest and missions. They had things drawn out in maps. Like it was full blown military warfare. In the way that we would imagine it with the Romans and the Greeks fighting, as strategically and methodically thought out as that
Very
was.
similar.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
right. So you have people being sent to. I'm just making something up right now as an example. They have a town somewhere in the west there that's a conquered part of the empire that now is part of the Aztec Empire. Maybe 1,000 people live there.
Yeah.
And they send 3 equivalents of what we might refer to today as a soldier to be there to kind of like look over stuff, and people know don't fuck with those
That's
guys.
exactly right. Yeah, yeah. So we know so you kind of have these 2 phases of empires that come from the Mexican Valley. And the prototype for the Aztec Empire was Teotihuacan that I was telling you about earlier, that massive city that had been abandoned 1,000 years before the Aztec Empire rises. So Teotihuacan was also an empire 1,000 years before, very similar in many ways to the Aztecs. And when we go to the Maya world, we will find what we call Talud-Tablero architecture. So Talud-Tablero architecture is just the name of the architectural style. So you'll see an entire city with thousands of buildings that we know, this is Petén architecture. This is, Rio-Bec architecture, X, Y, and Z, Puc architecture. So this looks like this is Petén. This is probably...
What Thief has up here?
Yeah, this is probably Guatemala. So you would go through a city and you'd see a lot of architecture that's very, very similar to this. And then you'll see one building that's in the style of Talud-Tablero. And it's very noticeable, like the facades of the front of the building are just totally different style while yet still in the same genre. And so judging by the hieroglyphs and the images and the gods that are depicted on these buildings, we know that these buildings were built by Teotihuacanos that were living in the Maya world, and these were basically ambassador buildings. So when Teotihuacan was taking over the Maya realm, it's not like they invaded a Maya city with a bunch of Teotihuacano people. They just probably killed all of their soldiers or killed most of them and then brought their own soldiers in and put them in, and then they had an administrative ambassador building where an important governmental person from Teotihuacan lived in this Maya city and basically made sure everything ran according to the plan of the Teotihuacano emperor.
That's what you got to do. You got to come in, you got to kill the existing soldiers. It's just an administrative hassle.
Yep. And they would allow most of the time the royal family to still exist, but they'd kill the king and replace the king with a Teotihuacano son.
How does that even work then? How does it still exist if you cut off the head of the snake? There's no royal bloodline.
Well, yeah. So it's kind of like okay. So there's a city called Copan. It's in Honduras. It's the farthest Maya city that you can get from the Mexican Valley, the farthest major Maya city. And there's a stele there where we can see the lineages of the Maya kings. And then I forget the last king, but he ends, and the next king that shows up on a stele is a man that looks completely different than we've ever seen before, and his name glyph is a Teotihuacano name. So he becomes the new king all of a sudden, and he marries a Maya woman, and they have this dynastic marriage that now can. So it's like Teotihuacan took over Copan, killed the king, and then had one of the daughters there marry his own son. So now his son is the king of Copan, right? So it's subsidiary.
Backdoored it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, it's undetectable, but they probably just replaced all the soldiers with their own soldiers and, something like this. So this is the blueprint for the Aztecs. The Aztecs just fit right into, they just do exactly the same thing and then sweep across the Mesoamerican world.
This is not, but that's what's crazy. They didn't even come, as you were pointing out, they didn't even come down to Mexico until 1100, 1150, 1200. And they're able to build that large swath of land. Again, this isn't like in the modern day where things move faster because there's more means of technology and intercommunication, all that. They build that big of a swath of an empire within basically like 200 or 300 years.
Yeah, it's
which
amazing.
I know that's a long time, but again, back then, like lack of resources, crazy they were able to do that. And all different kinds of terrains there as well. You got to think about fighting the geography.
Oh, it's crazy.
And yet they turn into this 10 million strong empire basically over there by the time Cortez comes around.
Yeah.
Now, part of the problem is, and I could ask this question about every empire that's ever existed that conquers people, so it's relevant to all of them, but it's relevant here again. How do you develop pure loyalty when you conquer all these people who technically are then pulled into your empire, but they're not a part of your culture by blood, such that when someone, I don't even know if this is relevant to Cortez, but just bear with me here, someone like Cortez comes in, a lot of those 10 million people, basically 9.5 million of them don't even want to fight for it because they're like, whatever. All right,
it's
another
totally
ruler,
relevant,
right?
It's utterly, completely relevant. Cortez arrives, and the reason that the Aztecs fell is because so many of the tribes turned against the Aztecs and helped Cortez. So Cortez essentially divided and conquered Mexico. He got everyone to turn against the Aztecs because the Aztecs are anything but Mesoamerican. I mean, they're not. We see them as synonymous with Mesoamerica. They're incredibly important to Mesoamerican history as a whole. But I can tell you right now, nobody in Mesoamerica liked the Aztecs. They came from the north. They are invaders, just like the Spanish were. They invaded ancient Mexico or ancient Mesoamerica and completely flipped it on its head. Their style of warfare, the brutality, the way that they conquered was inherently different than the way that things had been run in Mesoamerica previously. And it was just much more brutal and much more vicious. Warfare in Mesoamerica previously, for thousands of years previously, was vicious, but it wasn't necessarily imperial. The only example of that is Teotihuacan, and Teotihuacan fell from inside itself in around the year 500 AD and never rose again. All of the other wars were not really imperial. The Maya were not imperial people. The Zapotecs were not. Veracruz culture was not imperial. They just didn't view the world in that way. And so the Aztecs were very much alien to the Mesoamerican world. And so when Cortez showed up, everybody else that was already native to Mexico instantly turned on the Aztecs and helped the conquistadors plot against them and fight against them.
Before we go to that whole history and how that went down, what at their peak, which is essentially like right before Cortez comes.
Their peak is 1519.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at their peak, what did their economy look like, and what did their social class structure look like?
Oh gosh, this is kind of beyond something that I can answer as far as the Aztecs. Like if it were the Maya, I could answer this very easily.
That's why I like you, Luke. You're willing to say I don't know instead of making shit up. That's great.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
My guess would be, they have an empire that runs out of Tenochtitlan, and everything else in Mexico is actually running just like normal. Again, it's not like they replaced the city of Cholula, which is just another site in the Mexican Valley. It's not like they replaced the city of Cholula with all new Aztec people and totally changed the fabric of society. You had your different levels. So you have Yeah, at least from what we can tell, right? Like we don't have a document that tells us exactly how Mesoamerican society was run. The way that we know is, so we were walking, you and I were walking down the street the other day, and I said in ancient times people would cover up the buildings with stucco. You remember that?
Yeah, that was
because
today.
because the brickwork was kind of ugly in the ancient world, so they would flatten it out with white stucco, and then they would paint on it, and those paintings represented everyday life. So sometimes you get like a depiction of a market, or you get a depiction of a marketplace, dynastic people or royal family interacting with normal people. So judging by that artwork, we can infer a lot about their society.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.